I am here with Justin McGary, founder and host of the Underground Society podcast. Justin, welcome to the Launchpad. How are you doing today?
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. You've had freaking legends on this show, so it's an honor to be here. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Role's a little bit reversed here today.
I know.
Thank you again for having me on the Underground Society a couple weeks ago.
Go check that out if you guys haven't.
Yeah. Is it weird for you being on like your end? Like now you're the one receiving the questions?
Actually, it's a whole lot easier because I don't have to do any of the prep work. I can just go in and be myself and just kind of, I like being on camera, so it's not, that part's easy. But I don't have to do any of the prep work. So I think and I don't have to do any of the thinking. I let you do that. So.
Yeah, right. How, speaking of like your prep work, like how do you get yourself prepared to, from your side of things when you're getting ready to ask the questions, like what goes into that?
So whenever I, book someone, and they say yes or whatever, and we pick a date, then I send them over the link to the recording software, which we're using right now. And then I also send them over a form, for them to fill out with a bunch of just like talking, like general questions of like what would make the interview a win for them, kind of what, kind of go in depth of kind of what I want to talk about, in the interview, just basically give us some talking points. And then from there, I go and research, online. I look up their name on Google. If they have any previous interviews or any articles or anything written about them, I collect all of that information and all the links and stuff, put it on a form, and then I do a 2 to 3 page outline for every single guest. So lots of intensive, try and find, little things that maybe people don't know about them that, I had to dig for, or little nuggets, and try and put it in there. So it's a lot of work that goes into it, but I like doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know, like, I come from a journalism background as well. And one of the things that really stood out to me was like very early on in journalism school, I was told, like, try to tell the story that somebody else already hasn't told, or something that you can't just look up online. And I think that, individuals like yourself and you do this all the time, so frequently, like that's going to be like the most difficult part of your prep work, is trying to find another angle that somebody else hasn't already taken.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the whole basis of my show, really. I try to make any project successful, you want it to be, different from what's out there already, because you want to give people a reason to like, give people a reason, or something that they can resonate with that's not what they've seen before. Really helps a good company, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your background. I know you and I have spoken a number of times now. You told me that you've tried several different positions in music before really discovering like your love of being a podcaster. Like, what did you try, and kind of what was your path to figuring out like this was your passion and this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. My family, so both my parents are entrepreneurs, so that's a good basis. Kind of
easy way in.
Give you an idea. But yeah, so my parents, always drilled in my head. They're like, figure out what you love doing and figure out a way to make money at it. So that was my life, like, mission. It's like at a young age, a lot of people don't know. It takes a long time to figure out what you really like to do. But I always liked music. My mom, I grew up I've been to probably 300-400 concerts outside of the EDM industry. Classic rock, Justin Timberlake, Bruno Mars, country concerts, everything. I grew up just loving just music in general. And
what was your first one?
Kenny Loggins when I was 3 years old. Yeah, yeah. So I just grew up, going to concerts and stuff. And I was always like, I had a buddy in high school actually who was a guitarist and a singer for my church. And he, we were best friends, and he would kind of try his new songs out, play them for me. And I learned how to play a little bit of drums. So we would like jam in his garage, and it really started, I was like, this is fun. I don't see this going anywhere, but we would always joke around and be like, I'm not the musician guy, but I really, even back then I was like, I knew I liked business. And it kind of planted that seed in my head of like, what, maybe I could go into the business side of the music industry, but it wasn't until 10-ish years later where I was like, okay, someone brought me to my first EDM show, and that's where kind of the ball started rolling, and I was like, oh, maybe I could actually pursue this crazy dream that I had when I was 12. So
was there like a moment? Yeah. Was it was there like a specific moment for you when you were at that event where it just kind of like clicked and like you were looking around and you're like, this is what I want to do?
No, so I knew that raving was a thing that I just wanted to do as an activity for the rest of my life. I just fell in love with the scene and as a fan. But I didn't, the business I didn't start picking up. And to answer your question previously, my first position in the EDM industry was I was just a promoter for a local promotion company that threw events. And then later on that turned into me being one of their stage hands. So I started, doing stage production and stuff like that. And then COVID happened. I was not only a stage hand for them, but that, I started becoming a stage hand for other shows and stuff, and started traveling a little bit, and I started making money off of it. So, but it's just, I knew I didn't want to do that side of my goal is always to get into the business side of things and not really like the show promotion side of things, even though that is business. But I didn't want to be like a stagehand forever, so that was just kind of something that I did. So and then the idea of becoming a manager and that started kind of like, okay, I want to be in business. What is like a business role? And I started kind of looking into it, and the management and artist management really piqued my interest, and that's something that I'm still working on developing now. But yeah.
If COVID never happened, do you think that that's where you would be focusing more of your time and development, is in the artist management side of things? Like, do you think you'd still be involved with events?
I'm no longer involved in events, and probably not. I probably would have ended that at some point. And that company that I used to work for that really gave me my first opportunity, it doesn't even do shows anymore. So that opportunity is just like completely gone now. But I'm very grateful for, it really showed me the ins and outs and kind of the whole 360-degree angle of what the music industry really look like. So it kind of gave me my base foundation. But to answer your question, I don't think I would. I'm in the space now with starting doing the podcast, and I have a couple other like local guys that I work with, and work on their bookings and get them press releases and stuff. So I am working on the management side as well already. So yeah,
nice. That's awesome. Any artists that you want to plug right now that you're working with?
Yeah, shout out Anubis, shout out Trends, shout out Yucky Charms. They're all boys from my area. Actually, Anubis he edits the show, so he used to be my roommate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of, people on your team, like how many people do you have on your team, and, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, me and an editor. I do everything. So me and one guy that does the sound engineering because he's a music producer. So I wanted to offload at least that. I am looking at expanding a little bit more. I'm going to be going to Icon Collective and getting my education for music business, hopefully by next year. So when that happens and I have school added to my plate, I really need to offload some things. So that's definitely something I'm looking at in the near future to start doing.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about team building as well, and kind of, how you go about building a team. And, what do you think is the biggest challenge in both, building a team, and, where would you be looking to expand? Like if you could bring somebody on right now to help like alleviate the majority, or not the majority, just, some of the work that you're doing, like what kind of positions would you be looking for?
Yeah, so start with your first question of hiring people. I think I told you in the episode that we did on my show is I hired someone. I hired a couple people to kind of just run like, I wanted to do the radio series that we do once a month, and I needed someone literally just to work on bookings and to kind of get that situated. It just wasn't something that I wanted to put my time and energy into because we had the podcast weekly releases, and that's really where I need to put my time and focus into. And my editor actually does that job now, but I brought someone on, and I had to even at the time I had a day job as well, and I had to like leave work early one day because we had a release, and he didn't have any of the work done, and no problem. We moved on. We're still friends and everything, but I think the biggest challenge is finding the people. We even talked about when you're a small publication, you can't really the funding and to like pay people to pay if you have a business that you can pay people, awesome. The people will probably do the work because they're getting paid to do it. But the challenge was, paying people or finding the right people who are willing to work for nothing and just volunteer at the early phases, and for them to be volunteers because they're not getting paid, for them to actually follow through and do all the work. That's a challenge for sure.
Yeah, I think, another thing we talked about, the hardest part is finding people who believe in what you believe in, who are passionate about what you're passionate about.
The long-term vision, who really see what you're trying to set out and accomplish. It's hard to find these people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, underground as a whole, like what are your main pillars? What do you stand for, and what do you want your audience to know about you and the
Yeah.
podcast?
Yeah, so basically what the show is about, the premise is, it's basically I designed the show to help out the people who have a dream just like I did when I was 12 years old, and I had no clue. It was just I had no idea that this would end up being the path that I was going to take. Honestly just fell into it, and I feel very fortunate and very lucky that I did at such a young age too, because I'm only 25, and I've started my podcast 3 years ago. I started very young compared to most people. I feel very fortunate for that, but to answer your question, it's really it's to help out the people who were in my shoes when I was 12 years old, whether they're that age or their mid-20s or wherever they're at in life. If they want an opportunity to work in the music industry, I want to be able to provide an opportunity for the people the professionals in our industry to come on and tell their stories to help, give encouragement, to give some education, to give some insight into how to become successful within the dance music industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love what you believe in and just what you stand for, because I love all of those values that you have, and like your work ethic and everything that you put into your day to day. Just like just having the brief conversations that we have, like from your preparation to what you're putting into it every day.
Yeah.
Like it's admirable, and I love watching it.
Thank you, man.
With that in mind too, like all this work that you're putting into each one of your conversations and interviews, what are you hoping that your audience takes away from each one of your episodes?
Yeah, it's different. It's always different. It's whatever I try and focus on, whatever that guest, and I try and focus on not only musicians, but the business people, the photographers, the influencers, everyone within our industry. Because, I think it'd be doing a disservice to the audience if I only focus on one group. And, I think that there's multiple people that listen to our show who want to get different things from our show, whether they want to go into becoming a musician or, like I said, becoming a photographer. I want to be able to provide a place for them to learn at least something from each guest that we bring on. So, and again, that's different every single time. It really just depends on what specific challenge or what, each person has like their specific pain point. And I think that's what we really try and highlight in our show is like that specific pain point and how they overcame that.
Yeah,
so it's always different.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Let's say things continue, on the trajectory that they are right now. Where do you see the podcast in the next like 3 to 5 years, and what are some of your longer term, mid to long term goals just for the podcast?
I love this question because I want to expand it past a podcast. I've grown up. I used to be in the fitness space. I used to compete in men's physique bodybuilding. Have always been watching the fitness influencers and stuff. That's a huge thing. And some of the people that I watch, I've watched from the very beginning, and now they own their own gyms. They're sponsored by huge companies and stuff like that. And I kind of want to take my journey and model after that. So long term, I would love, if it's still a thing, I don't know, we'll kind of see how social media is an ever evolving thing, but I would love, and I've always wanted to do this. I almost did this with fitness, but I was just too young at the time. I really want to start a vlogging channel for like my management team and like show the behind the scenes of like what goes into like our day to day and catch it all on camera, vlog all of it. Like, I want everything on tape. So not only the podcast, and I'll continue with that and continue interviewing people, but I really want, when I have like a full-fledged team, I really want to bring in like videographers to like help us like capture like the behind the scene moments and the big moments, playing EDC, playing, all that crazy shit.
Yeah, I love that. And, speaking of just fitness in general, you mentioned that a lot of your outside passions are hiking, working out, doing like wakeboarding, and a lot of outside activities. What was it kind of at an early age that you just enjoyed being outside with nature? Like some people were growing up around that.
Yeah, the way I was raised for sure. I grew up camping, tent camping every single summer, houseboating, wakeboarding. My family, we have wakeboard boats, and my grandpa was actually a boat mechanic. So I grew up loving the outdoors, but the fitness thing, my uncle actually, my grandpa who used to do the mechanic shop, his son, he used to compete in bodybuilding. He also sells workout equipment. So, and my mom's super into fitness. So it's kind of just, it's our lifestyle, really.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think too a lot about fitness, and like I can speak from my experience. Like I was never somebody that grew up like that, where I was young and like I had a good metabolism. I was like, oh, whatever. Like I don't have to worry about my fitness. And all of a sudden, I get into my late 20s or 30s. I'm like, shit, like, I got to start combating this. And, we're going to festivals and, we're partying and everything like that. And, I think I finally hit a point where I was like, I need to start combating my lifestyle. And, one of my questions is for you, just like with your, day-to-day exercise routine, like how much of an impact does that have on your, like your mental health? Because for me, I went from feeling like almost like a cloud, like was, gathered around me a lot of times to, I started being physical and active, and I felt like it opened up a lot of things. Like, what's your perspective on that? And, how do you work that into your day-to-day?
Exactly as you just said. I work out now mainly for my mental health. I enjoy, and I know how to train because I used to compete, and I still train similar to that. I enjoy getting the pump and stuff, and that's like something that I enjoy about the gym. But really, it is for the mental clarity, so that I can perform better outside of the gym. When I go to the gym, I start my day with I wake up and go immediately to the gym. Luckily, I'm in a position where I can do that, and the time makes sense, where I don't have to go after the work. But yeah, that's the first thing I wake up and do. And the days that I don't do that, I'm way less productive. Way less productive. Like if I can go clear my head, get all my thoughts out, and then immediately after that I meditate and pray as well. I'm a Christian, that's my morning routine. And without that, dude, my brain is everywhere. I have super bad ADHD, and I'm lost if I don't do those things. So.
Yeah, I find it a lot easier to just wake up and go early in the morning as well, too, because you go through your whole day, and by the end of the day, you're just like,
you're tired.
It's just like dragged out, and you're worn out. You've been working all day, and the last thing you want to do is that. So I like that. Same thing for me. One of the things that I'd love to hear about is, outside of, what you're currently doing and, your hobbies, is there anything that you've had your eye on that you want to start incorporating into your daily routine? Or do you have any passions that you wish that you did more?
Man, honestly, no. I really do. I've always been that person. And I think it's just, back to what my parents ingrained in me at a young age, is figure out what you love doing, whether you're making money from it yet or not. Like, I put all your time and energy into it, and like I just do what I love every day. So it's like outside of that, it's like hanging out with friends or like, that's about it. Other than that, and I do wish that I had a little bit more time for my friends because I do work a lot. But I think that'd be like the only thing, just spending more time with the people that I love. And I wish I had more time for that. But I also understand, and I hope they understand that I plan on doing big things in my life. So
you're out here grinding again. I love that. You talked a little bit about just kind of your path to getting into the position that you're in now. If you had like a piece of advice that you could give to an up and coming professional, or even a younger version of like yourself, what would that piece of advice be?
Man, I would probably say, I asked this question on my show, so that's a great question. I've actually that question's never been flipped on me. So I would probably say, honestly, just like keep going. I know everyone says this, but keep going. I've had many days, and I've been at this for 3 years, and there's been many days where I don't see any progress, and it's really freaking discouraging. And you're like you said, like, why am I even doing this? Like, what's the point of me doing it? Like, is this really going to come to fruition? And, just having that faith. And I think the biggest thing that's helped me is, and I know not everyone shares the same beliefs, but, my relationship with Jesus and, following and trusting and having faith in that and him, and like, just, knowing that he has a plan for me, and knowing that by doing this and leaning into something that, lights you up and sets you on fire, like to me, that's what a calling is. And if it's wrong of you, and you're not serving Jesus if you're not leaning into your calling. So as long as I stay on the path, I'm having faith that it's going to work out in my favor, and I just got to keep obeying. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah. I definitely see that.
Yeah.
When you're kind of in that, like that mode of like, like shit, like what am I doing? Like this is tough. Like, paired with like just that belief that you're doing the right things. Is there anything that you can recommend for people to like kind of like clear their mind, get their mind like reset and kind of get refocused?
Yeah. I mean, I've already said this, but back to the gym and meditating, those things are definitely like, prayer. I heard someone else say this actually on my show. I forget who said it, but prayer and meditation actually have a lot to do with each other. Even if you don't believe in that, you're not a prayer, at least meditating and going through your thoughts and at least like accepting where you're at in life and just kind of just sitting with your thoughts, I think helps a lot, whether you're religious or not. And I think praying is kind of just like the active form of meditation. They kind of go hand in hand. So taking the religious part of of it so it can resonate with the people who aren't religious, I think meditating is a huge thing, and just really like taking time for yourself too. Like I used to hate being alone, like especially like at a young age I was very codependent with my ex-girlfriends, and like there was a lot of growth that I had to do there. And now being alone like is like honestly one of my favorite things to do. I love my alone time. I really value it, and I think learning to do that really changes the game for a lot of people.
Do you think that, and for me, it was actually this way, COVID helped me enjoy being alone more.
Oh, for sure.
And being within my own time and space. Like, what was your experience?
I went through
like
a scary time during COVID because I actually went through a breakup during COVID. And we were living together, and I spent all my time with, and I was like, I felt like my life like ended at the end of that because I was like, shit, now I have no one to do anything with. I have to stay at home by myself. Yeah. But then that's when the birth of the podcast happened. So, I leaned into something that I just put my focus elsewhere. So
yeah. I find like that's a lot of times the best way to get over anything that is stressing you out is to, like you said, like take that energy and take that time and focus it elsewhere. Yep. Like you can really break almost everything down into two things. It's like your energy and your effort. Like you can direct where your energy goes.
I have
and
something
like
to
your
follow
effort.
that up with. Yeah. Energy, enthusiasm, and effort are the only three things that you can control. My uncle actually told me that like last year, and I wrote it in my phone. That's actually a note that I have in my phone.
It's just so true too. Like in any instance or scenario, in some fundamental way, really you can break it down to one of those two or three things.
Yep.
Is there like, we talked about your goals for the next 3 to 5 years. Is there anything like coming up like relatively soon that you're super excited for, or just anything that you want the listeners to know?
Man, I'm not going to give any names away, but I just finalized 2 of the biggest bookings to date. Like we got a couple of really big artists coming up that I honestly like. When the second one just came in today, the confirmation on it, and it honestly, I was like, brought me to tears. So I'm really excited for the future and what's coming up in the next couple months as far as like who we have on the show. Past that, really just focusing, and I got some debt that I got to pay off before I go to school. So just normal life shit that I got to focus on before I move on to the next thing. Okay. Without giving away too much information on, what you just said, how about like a timeline? Can anybody expect to where they can be looking out for this? In the next like month, like soon, in the next few weeks. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. On that note, where can people stay up to date with Underground Society and you personally?
Yeah, Underground Society, honestly, just check out our website, www.undergroundsocietypodcast.com. You'll find all of our merch there. You'll find all of our episodes there, video and audio, all of our links to social media. Just go to our website. You'll find everything. Personally, Instagram is kind of where I hang out personally, at Justin J. McGary. Anyone, please follow me. I'll post a bunch of random silly shit on my story all the time. So, go check that out.
Awesome. Anything else that you want the listeners to know?
Man, just keep trucking, guys. I think that's the motto of my week is, a lot of things that we started out this conversation. I had a couple shifts in my schedule, and I definitely just keep on trucking. Even when things don't look bright, just keep going, man, and everything will work out.
I love it. Last thing before I let you go, with moon landing and the launch pad, we'd really love to practice just gratitude.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you are grateful for? It doesn't have to be, professional. It can be in your personal life, but what are a couple things or even just one thing that you're just really grateful for right now?
I think we share the same thing as well, but for one is the people that I have surrounding me. A couple of years ago, and I think everyone goes through this period of time, but like when you're in high school and stuff, you don't really get to choose who you surround yourself with. But once you get out of high school, you kind of start choosing. And I'm lucky that I'm very fortunate that I don't know why this happened, but I got very picky about who I put in my life, and I'm very grateful that I did because the people I have in my life now are some solid ass people. So if you're friends with me or you're close to me and you're listening to this, I love you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, I love it. Hey, man. Well, Justin, thank you again so much for your time today. Really appreciate you, having us on Underground Society, and you likewise joining us here today and signing off for the launch pad. I'm Nick Lamoureux. See you next time.
Thanks, man.